Okay, hello everyone. It's great to have you all on board. It's another time with Tutor.io, the enthusiastic tutor, and in today's tutorial, it happens to be the continuation of our classes on course POL326. And just like we all know how things have been done, we are expected to take some topics according to what we have in the course material, and we all are expected to follow as suit. Now, for those of us who are new to the stream, let's ensure to subscribe to the channel. Let's ensure to subscribe to the channel. Let's ensure to also, just a moment, let's ensure to subscribe to the channel. Oh, that's too much lighting. Also, let's ensure to have our writing materials with us as we go through this together. Now, according to the thumbnail, we're going to be discussing natural resources. Okay, we're going to be discussing natural resources. Now, if you remember quite all right, in our last class, we talked about environmental politics. And in this class, we were able to establish certain facts, all right? We're able to establish certain facts, all right? And I made it clear, I made it known to us that why should politics and the environment or the study of the environment work hand in hand, all right? You might be wondering, what does politics have to do with the environment? In this course, we are going to be dissecting how these two works together, all right, or how one can have an effect on the other, all right. In the course of this course, we are going to be dissecting that, okay. So in our last class, we talked about what it means by the environment, and we also established the fact that politics can have a positive or negative effect on the environment, all right. So in the course of this class today, we're going to give it a continuation, all right. We're going to give it a proper continuation and dissecting of how these two work hand in hand. Are we together? We're going to give it a continuation and a proper dissecting of how these two works hand in hand. All right. So just before we get started, for those of us who are new to the stream, all right, perhaps it might interest you to join our private class where we do the main work. What we do basically on YouTube is more like just 30%. The private class is where we walk you through everything properly, although we are just getting started, and a whole lot of things, we are still trying to put a whole lot of things in place. And that is why sometimes we actually start a little bit behind schedule. I think in our first few days now, we'll be a little bit behind schedule, but irrespective of whether we are behind schedule or not, I'll always ensure to show up and let's take our classes. All right. So just a moment, trying to get my material back. So in today's class, we're going to be talking about natural resources. In our retrospective class, we already established what it means by the environment. And for this level, at this level, for this particular department, I don't expect us to not know what politics is. All right. So we're going to be going straight ahead to talking about natural resources. And you don't want to talk, you want to talk about natural resources because we have talked about the environment. All right. It is in an environment you get to find natural resources. They are linked together. So speaking of which, we have natural resources. Now, speaking of which, when we talk about natural resources, I believe it's not something that is new to us at this level, all right? But just to touch it very quickly, when we talk about natural resources, we are talking about natural occurring of substances, all right? We are simply referring to natural occurring of substances. Are we together? We are simply referring to natural occurring of substances considered valuable. Okay? Natural occurring of substances considered valuable, all right, and unmodified. So we have natural occurring of, let's indicate it as certain, all right, substances. There are certain substances, the natural occurring, there are some occurring in an environment that are not natural. All right. So we talk about, I think if we should use certain, we are kind of limiting it. So I think it's fair enough to just leave it as natural occurring of substances. All right. For a substance to occur naturally, definitely it is not artificial. So let's leave it as natural occurring of substances. I'll try to make my writing as legible as it can be so we can see everything clearly. Mrs. Regina, I believe you can hear me. Mrs. Regina, are you with us? And can you please let me know if you can hear me loud and clearly? Because you were complaining in the last class that you were having difficulties hearing me. But can you hear me now? I'd like to know that, please. Let me know in the comment section. So as I was explaining, we're talking about natural resources. Thank you very much. And I believe you can hear me as well, ma. So we're talking about natural resources, and I said it is the occurring of natural substances. Now, take note that these substances are they are in a state called the unmodified state. All right. So let's put it this way: natural occurring of substances in an unmodified. Like I promised, I'll try as much as I can to make my um, handwriting legible, all right, clear enough so we can see. Because the lighting is not so impressive, we apologize for that. Like I said, we are still trying to put a lot of things in place. All right. So natural resources, all right, natural occurring of substances in an unmodified state. That's enough. Then if it interests you, you can try as much as you want to elaborate on that. Okay, it might interest you to elaborate more on that, but you get the point with that. Are we together? The natural occurring of substances in an unmodified state. A whole lot of these substances, and we're going to be talking about them in just a few minutes. Example of these, just to touch on it, example of these natural substances are petroleum, all right, crude oil, gas, sand, gravel, and so on and so forth. All right. So with this being said, let's move straight ahead to the next thing in line. All right. The next thing we have in line, as we have it here, is called environmental assets. So I'm just going to use environmental, this ENR, all right, environmental assets. Now, speaking of which, when we talk about environmental assets, what are we referring to? Now, when we talk of environmental assets, what we are simply referring to are those natural, all right, those components of the natural environments, all right, that we wish to conserve or usually substantively use such. Now, let's put it this way, these are components of the natural environment. So let's put it this way, let's repurpose that. These are the components of natural substances. These are components of natural substances which human conserves or use substantially. Which human conserves, human, so that's H, conserves, all right, or use substantially. Human uses this component or conserves this component, all right, and such, good example of such are the likes of land. Remember, no one produces land. It's a natural, it's a free gift of nature, all right. Water as well, the likes of the atmosphere, okay. So these are three, a whole lot of them though, but these are the ones we're just going to mention for the purpose of this class. All right, so we refer to those as environmental assets. Now, it is important to note that our environment is well endowed with naturally occurring assets. All right, a whole lot of free gifts of nature. We call them free gift of nature, but according to the course material, we are going to be referring to them as assets. Okay, we're going to be referring to them as assets. Now, our environment, it is very important for us to note that our environment is littered with these, all right, naturally occurring assets. Speaking of soil, the soil which we use in planting, speaking of rocks, all right, speaking of the majestic landscape, all right, animals, speaking of wide vegetation, varieties of vegetation, they are all right, littered everywhere. And these are the endowments we are talking about. Now, some of these are in good condition and are worthy of protection. Now, talking about the protection, this is where politics comes in. All right. Are you aware that there are some places you go to in some part of the world, you are not allowed to hunt down animals? There are some places you go in the part of the world that you are not allowed to fish in certain lakes or rivers. It is against the law. All right. Now, yes, nature gave all this to us freely at no cost. All right. But you know that there is need for the government to put in policies, rules, and regulation that will protect this endowment given to us by nature. This is where politics comes in. Now, I say some of these are in good conditions. All right. A whole lot of animals have gone into extinction because of uncontrolled hunting. A whole lot of species, all right, has been wiped out completely because there were no rules. Hunting is not a crime, all right, but when it becomes extreme, when it becomes uncontrollable, that's where the problem comes from. All right. So politics now with environment now, this is the purpose why we now have to study how politics or why we need as a student of political science, why you should understand environmental politics. Okay. So now there is need for protection of these endowments. All right. So now let's take a step further. It says here the management action. Now that we understand that there is need for the protection of these natural endowments, Then we need to talk about the management action. So we have management actions. Now, these are actions that can support the continuing management of natural assets. All right. We are coming from somewhere before we got here, which is management action. And when we talk about management action, we are talking about those actions that need to be put in place. Now, you can underline, you can switch this action for policies, rules, regulations, standards. All right. So, but now we are according to the course material, we are using action. So, these are actions that can support the continuing management of natural resources. All right. The responsibility of this action or the body that has been put in place to supervise or to oversee this action, their responsibility is to ensure that these natural assets are always in good condition or lead to improvements in the condition of natural resources. So just to responsibility, good condition, and we have improvement. All right, good condition and improvement of what? Natural assets. So I'm just going to try and see if I can squeeze this in. Natural assets. That's their responsibility. Make sure that these natural assets are in good condition and how we can keep improving them. And that's why a whole lot of country, unfortunately, where I'm from, we don't really, our government does not really pay much attention into tourism. A whole lot of country make so much revenue as a country from tourism. A whole lot of people come from different parts of the world just to come and be somewhere in some part of the world because of what their government have been able to activate or actualize or put into good conditions their natural assets. All right. The keeping in good condition and the improvement of these natural assets will not be the responsibility of an individual or a private entity. Now, they can do their part. I'm not saying they cannot, actually, but the sole responsibility still falls on the shoulder of the government. All right, a whole lot of natural endowments in Nigeria, but unfortunately, these endowments are not being kept in good condition enough. All right, I'm not saying some of them are not, but most of them are not in good condition, or most of them are not being improved upon. Right, and if only they can be worked upon and improved, it could be a major source of revenue. All right, which we can refer to as tourism for the country. All right, so we have that as that. So very quickly, let's talk about body varsity. There's something called body, okay, body varsity. Okay, there's something called body varsity. When we talk about body varsity, what are we simply referring to? Okay, now body varsity is the variety of all life form. The variety of all life form. Okay, now we'll break that down. We'll break that down in just a moment. Now, it is the sum total of all species of plants and animals. Okay, their inherent genetic makeup, the ecosystem that supports the communities of interdependent species. Now, let's have that in our picturized format. So we have biodiversity here. Okay, biodiversity. Okay, so we can refer to this as, just a moment. Okay, so this is biodiversity. It says it is the variety of all life form. Now, this life form comprises of all species of plants. All right, so we have all species of plants. We have animals. Okay, what else do we have? We also have the ecosystem. All right, ecosystem, and also we have, okay, ecosystem, their genetic makeup. Genetic makeup. Now, this is what makes up biodiversity. I promise I'm going to make my writing as legit. I'm not used to this, but I just have to ensure I make my writing legible enough for us to see because of the poor lighting of the room. Now, this is what we are referring to as biodiversity. All right, we have animals, plants, the ecosystem, and the genetic makeup of these living things in this universe. Okay, now we already know what these are already as well. All these are the living beings in this system. Now, their environment, how they react to their environment, all right, how they respond to certain changes, their survival, their reproduction, their death, reproduction, and how they respond to the environment is what we refer to their ecosystem. All right, and this genetic makeup now, based on their ecosystem, based on their timeline, you don't expect to see a dinosaur, all right, in this timeline, based on the available ecosystem. You don't expect to see and don't expect to see a animal with 4 or 5 heads in this current ecosystem. It cannot survive. All right. Now the ecosystem only supports certain fields. The genetic makeup of the ecosystem boils down to the genetic makeup of all these living beings that exist in this circle. Are we together? Now, it says here that an ecosystem is a geographical area where plants and animals and other organisms, as well as the weather, the landscape, working together to form what? Life. All right. You'll find in an ecosystem the living. Now, that is called biotic. All right. That's biotic. That's the living. And not just the living, we also have the abiotic, the biotic and the abiotic, which is the non-living. All right, comprises of the factors that makes up the ecosystem. So now, biodiversity contribute to what? Serenity, diversity, and recreational opportunities within a particular area. Are we together? So the reason why we have life in this circle is due to the biodiversity of that specific part of the world. And that's why if you take animals from here or plants from here, so we can refer to this place now as Earth. If you take animals or plants from Earth to Jupiter, all right, or any other planet, it might not survive, all right, because over there at that planet, these plants and animal, the ecosystem over there will definitely not favor this plant and animal, all right, because the survival of such animal is restricted to that environment. And if certain factors are not in that environment, such plant and animal will not survive. And that's why you see humans, whenever they want to go outside Earth, you see them wearing space masks. Let's even talk about the air. All right? Even just the air, apart from other things, is enough to knock out such person out. So we have that as that. Let's take a now there's something called environmental justice. All right. When we talk about environmental justice, it is the fair treatment and meaningful involvement. I think we should take that down. Are we together? Okay. Environmental justice. Now, when we talk about environmental justice, what are we referring to? All right. Just like we all know the meaning of what justice stands for, but now it is applicable in the space or in the sense of environment. Now, when we talk about environmental justice, we are simply referring to the fair treatment and meaningful involvement of all people, okay, regardless, and all right, to the with respect of the development, implication, I beg your pardon, that's implementation and enforcement of environmental laws and policies. Now, what are we saying in essence? Laws and policies are being implemented, all right, to affect everybody, irrespective of your social status. Meaning to say, if the law says nobody is allowed to hunt in this particular area, it does not have some special people that are permitted to hunt. It's applicable to everybody. If it says that citizens are allowed to, all right, come the landscape of a certain environment, a certain, all right, no preferential differences. So let's take this. That's why it said that it is a fair treatment. So the 2 points here are, like I usually say, at this level, at this level second semester, you are no longer in 200 level. All right, it's blurry again. I don't know why it's this way sometimes. Sorry, I just have to do that. Okay, I think it should definitely, it's, I think it has to do with the lighting. I think it has to do with the lighting. Okay, aha. The camera is trying to grab the whiteboard. Okay, I think it's better. So now the point here is there's a fair treatment. All right, a fair treatment and meaningful involvement of all people. That's just it. A fair treatment, meaningful involvement. Okay, a fair treatment and a meaningful involvement. All right, of all people. A fair treatment and a meaningful involvement of all people. I think I seriously need to improve the illumination of this my room. It seriously has to be improved upon. All right. Just pardon us for now. We are working on a whole lot of things at the same time, but with time everything will be sorted. So now, a fair treatment and a meaningful involvement of all people. Now, when we say of all people, now we have been able to trash out social status difference. You have been able to trash out how much you earn because you earn social amount. You are not allowed to do certain things as far as the environment is concerned. No, that is injustice. When we talk about environmental justice, it's a fair treatment and meaningful involvement of all people. All right, in respect with respect to the development, all right, and then and enforcement of environmental laws. Let's just include that with respect to, let's just use environmental. I'm going to abbreviate that as well. Environmental laws. Okay. Like I usually say, at this level, you just have to be able to build your own definition. You should be able to interpret things the way you would understand. So that's why I don't do garbage in, garbage out from the course material. I try to bring it out so you can digest and have your own better understanding. Okay. So now we have the environmental justice. So we're going to be looking at environmental freedom as well. We shouldn't take much on that since it's just basically freedom. It's very close to justice. Okay. So we're just going to look. It simply means the right of individuals as provided by nature. All right. The rights, it implies the right of individuals. Okay. It implies the rights of individuals as provided by nature. Okay. That is the freedom. The freedom that you are permitted to enjoy certain rights provided by nature. The government should not deny you of that. All right. So, very quickly, our time is fast spent. So, there's something called environmental risk. All right. As we have the justice, as we have the freedom, so as well we have the risk. So, we'll talk about the risk now. All right. It has quite a number of meanings. Okay. Of unwanted, negative. Okay. That was the thing from the network. I think we are back now. Okay, can we all hear me now? Please let's let me know in the comment section. Can we all hear me now? Okay, thank you for that. Thank you for the confirmation. So although we are about rounding up things, so let's just take the last set. Now, environmental risk, as good as nature appears to be, as nice, as good, all of the good things from nature, they are also risk attached to nature as well. All right. And when we talk about the risk, we are talking about the probability of an adverse outcome or the downside of nature. All right. The downside of nature. And sometimes nature can be very dangerous. All right. When we have animals attacking humans, when we have earthquake, volcano eruption, landslide, some very, very dangerous weather, lightning. These are adverse of nature. Okay, so we have that as that. We'll call it a wrap here for today. And in our next class, we'll be talking about the scope of environmental politics. All right, we're going to be dissecting the scope of environmental politics. So I want to give us an assignment quickly with not less than 100 words. All right, explain why politics is needed in in securing the environment. Why politics is required in securing the environment. So we call it wrap here for today. I trust we understand that we're having this class tomorrow, if I'm not mistaken. So please let's do submit our assignments this night latest. Thank you very much, and let's have a wonderful evening. I look forward to seeing you all in subsequent classes. And like I said, for those of us who have not joined the private class yet, and it might interest you to join the private class, all you need to do is just send me a direct message. Go to our website, www.tutorial.net. You find the WhatsApp button in the top right corner. You need to send me a direct message. Do have a wonderful evening and bye for now.